Well, folks, it's a little bit after 5, so I'd like to get started. And as before, I'm going to take roll. There's a kind of a dual purpose. I get requests from the administration to report. It'll be at the end of the next week, who has been coming to class. And basically, what they're doing is if there are people who haven't shown up, they'll contact them and try to find out what the problem may be. But at any rate, the other purpose of this is so I can get to know the names a little bit. And so,
Yeah, I totally misread my schedule. So,
well, you solved the problem. I'm liking it. Yeah, see, that's what I'm talking about. And so anyway, Ileana, and you're on the women's hockey team, and until we met on Monday, I did not know we had a women's hockey team. So rock on. No, I think it's great. This one of the things I like about Maryville, they take Title IX seriously. And so, okay, Ileana. Mackenzie, I saw you back there. Okay. Rachel Corbello. Okay. And you're the one whose mom is downstairs? Okay. Well, that's okay. I'm just trying to mnemonic, you know. Carter Frank. Hello. There you are. Okay, good. Blake Frederick. Got it right. Yeah, I'm trying. And I gotta say, I love that conversation we had about your experiences and awareness and all of that.
Much appreciated, really.
Yeah, it's real. Yeah, and we can. Well, that's another thing. We're talking about Title IX. We're talking about students with disabilities too. We take that. I love a lot of things they do here.
Same.
Yeah. So Nathaniel, all right. And Dylan, Evelyn, Eddie. Good. Medina. Did you say Uzbekistan? Yeah, I'm just loving this class too. We've got a lot of people from all over the world. So awesome. Jewel, I know you. And Austin. Let's see. Olivia, she's not here. She was sick. Maybe she'll be here. Victor, Peru. Now, I don't know if I said this right before. Emma? Emma. Okay. Pulkit. And Olivia, you're here. Oh, I know. You did. And Pulkit's here. Lily. Well, there you are. Okay, good. Raylan. Where are you? Oh, right here in front. That's what happens. I can see people, places, and things right in front. Raylan, I'm glad you're here. and Grace. All right. We're in business. So a couple of things as we get started here. First of all, I have been getting, as we were just talking, letters of accommodation. If you have them, please send them. And I got some already, you know. And I want to add to that as I was going through the accommodations, it occurred to me that first of all, I should actually record all of these. It's being recorded now, and I'll put it up in the media gallery because there are some requirements to have the notes and everything's posted. So that is that. And I actually took a picture of these notes, and I'll have those on after class too. So that'll be in the course materials. This will probably go in with the module. Media does not go in the module. Doesn't fit. It's too big. So anyway, you athletes, hockey players and lacrosse players and all you guys, make sure I get your schedules and keep me posted on when you can't be here. I'm going to have these classes on Zoom, but I also know that a lot of times you guys are on the field, on the ice. When this class will be, you may be down there, or you may be like, well, oh, you guys go all
I was gonna email you, but there were actually no conflicts.
okay. Okay, and if something changes, because you know, like when you guys get to the playoffs and stuff,
Yeah. they will- obviously-
championship celebrations and. Hey, I'm telling you, hockey, you came to the right place. 2019 Stanley Cup.
I watched that, I watched those games.
Oh, yeah.
I was actually cheering for St. Louis, you know, this year, only when the Leafs lost.
Oh,
watched
right,
the-
yeah.
You watched the juniors? No, it was insane. Canada was 2-2. I didn't watch it, but I thought the bit not yet. Dude, the last shot was.
Hockey, yeah, all these sports are, yeah. Yeah, right now I'm kind of immersed in baseball, you know, yeah. But, yeah, it's a St. Louis thing. But we're kind of lucky in this respect too. We have baseball and we have hockey. We don't have any other competition. We don't have professional competition anyway. We used to have a professional NBA team on. Had 2 NFL teams gone. Yes. Yeah. So anyway, what I want to talk to you about and why we came here today is about art in the Stone Age. And so all of these chapters, the first illustration is a map, and in this case, there are 2 maps. And I think it's kind of important that you understand the geography because it makes some of the other things about the artwork and the people make a lot more sense. And so here we have Western Europe, and you see all of this activity down here, the south of France, and this range of mountains here is the Pyrenees. And you can see based on the illustration, and Mike noticed this already, I'm sure. This is, the terrain is what here? Mountainous?
I'm not gonna say it.
Oh, it's okay. It's mountainous and that's why we find a lot of caves. Caves typically occur in mountainous regions. And so that's basically what we're going to look at is cave art. And there are some other things in the Stone Age, ancient places, Northern Scotland, Ireland, England, Germany, Austria, you know, various spots around Europe. But the second map is in the Middle East. And so we have these sites in Turkey, but we also have this area here. It's called Mesopotamia. It's the land between the rivers. And it is basically agreed upon that this is the area that the Bible talks about, the Quran, the Jewish traditions, that this is the Garden of Eden in this area. And they, in Iraq, Iran, and parts of Syria, they call this the cradle of civilization. And so you can see we go all the way out here to Jericho and Syria, Jordan, etc. But anyway, the Middle East, two areas we're going to look at today. And so I need to, this is cut off. At any rate, these are the caves at Altamira. No, wait, Lascaux. What? I didn't know I'd cut my. Slides off. Anyway, this is typical. This is typical cave art. And honestly, nobody really even understood that these places existed until like really about 100 years ago. And so why was that? Because they're really deep in caves and people didn't even go there except for extreme situations. But bottom line is that that was the exploration. People were going into caves to see what they could find. The other thing that you have to know when looking at this is that without a torch or a lantern or something, this is pitch dark. So you can't even see these. And so bottom line is that about 100 years ago, they started discovering these things. And it was in Europe where they first discovered these. And that's why you see all those sites in the map that I just showed you a moment ago. And so I want to show you this too, because this is kind of important. And that is, why are we looking at those places, the caves? Because the caves were places where ancient people went to and utilized. My colleague here, who's the department chair, and he's an archaeologist, and he's taught me a lot about this stuff. And bottom line is that even the cave people, the so-called people that lived in caves, it's generally agreed upon that they really didn't live in these caves. And in fact, they were nomadic people. And typically, they're places where they lived and the places they'd moved to, and as I say, nomadic people often, were typically places like this. And I got these just basically from various continents, but in Africa, this is how people have lived for thousands of years. And when we're here on Monday, I had Plato's axiom. Necessity is the mother of invention, there's another part of that that it's not Plato, but if it's not broke, don't fix it. And what the truth is that there were places all over the world where what they did worked. And there was no reason to make big stone pyramids and stuff like that. In fact, this worked quite well. And as a matter of fact, if you are an environmentalist in this day, and I just saw this on PBS last night, so there's a group of people on Martha's Vineyard, which is a high-end real estate place on outside of Boston. It's called Martha's Vineyard. And there are people descendant from the indigenous people, and they are trying to put back the local flora and put the island back to the way it was pre-colonization. And you find that in a lot of places all over the world. They're looking back at this kind of existence and their practices, because, as I say, it wasn't broke, don't fix it. This kind of lifestyle did not destroy the environment in which they lived. And in fact, all of these cultures, the environment stayed the same, it worked. And we're finding out that what we do today in the 21st century and all of this stuff, it's got a lot of advantages, but it has a lot of drawbacks. Global warming and so on. So anyway, basically, and we're finding we're destroying species, plants and animals at a very alarming rate. See, that didn't happen when people were living this way. And this is not just Africa. There's Polynesia, and this is an example of how people lived in Polynesia. And basically, Polynesia is the islands of the Pacific Ocean. And so I'm not sure what if this was in Hawaii, American Samoa, Guam, but it doesn't matter. They basically lived in harmony with the environment. And so you'll see this kind of similarity. And something else you might want to take note of, what are these materials? They are what?
Straw for the roof.
Straw for the roof, absolutely. Wood, it's all, what we would call renewables. And it's all organic. And as such, and you're right on with that answer, almost everything they had being in harmony with the environment. A lot of the stuff that they made deteriorates. It's organic. And so we know, just by doing anthropological studies out here, that these are plains people that lived out in the Great Plains of North America, and they built these shelters. Actually, the guy in Martha Vineyards had a teepee. They're very ingenious and they're very portable. And these people who lived out on the plains basically followed the buffalo herds. That was their primary source of food and so on. And so anyway, it was portable. It worked. It worked for tens of thousands of years. And so anyway, but we know that there were artistic elements to this too. This was not just practical, but we know that there are these teepees typically were painted with a lot of Native American art, but the materials have deteriorated, so we don't really know a lot about it. And so, anyway. Got a couple of links here. And so what we talk about in the book, basically, we have this piece right here that we think goes back to 3 million years. But most of all of this stuff we're talking about is in, tens of thousands of years old. This being, 35,000 years old and 17, and see, I'm adding 2 onto this because we're in the 2000s common era. Bottom line is, though, we're always finding stuff, and here is, gotta make sure I got the right share, or it won't record it. Check this out. This is a Smithsonian, which they want me to buy.
Oh, thank you.
No, thank you, not right now. And so anyway, and it's something the library carries too. It's really one of the better sources of news in archaeology, because that's really what the Smithsonian does is history. And so found at a hot spring on the Tibetan Plateau, which is like 15,000 feet, like way up in the mountains. And impressions were likely left by hominin children. And here is the analytics of it. And you can see it in handprints. That's a common characteristic in ancient art. We see hands all the time. And so anyway, but they think this is 200,000 years old. And it says here, let me see, did I read that here or not? Anyway, it says they're 5 times as old as some of the other cave art we've found. And the second thing is that there is some debate on whether or not this is art. And these are all the questions that come up. But the important part of that is that they can do this kind of spectrography. They can analyze surfaces to find images that you may not see with the naked eye. They may be buried under sediment, they may be whatever. But at any rate, this is another example of how they use modern 21st century technology in the study of ancient art. And so, and let me see if I got the right screen. I do, good. And I wanted to introduce you to these terms too. Prehistoric ages. This is a history channel. Make sure I got this on this. This is what I look. Oh, by the way, just reminded me. You see how I have to keep changing screens when I'm on Zoom so it records it? I didn't do that on Monday. So you got the audio of everything I said and everything that you said, but it's just this camera pointed at you. So we got what we talked about, but not this. Okay. And so, ma'am, you had a question? Yes.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just like holding my glasses. They're bothering me. I'm sorry.
Well, that's okay. Mine bothered me, I just took them.
Yeah.
You know, okay, good, just check. Bottom line, I want to show you this. There are ages, prehistoric age, like I said, the hands. That's always a big deal in this art. And for roughly 2.5 million years, humans lived on Earth without leaving a written record of their lives. So they call this prehistoric or prehistory. And there are some conditions that qualify this as prehistory. And it's roughly 2.5 million BCE. Did you notice that I was putting the E on that? BCE, and they say BC. What's that mean?
I think this means before Christ, but we stopped using that, and now it's before common area or era.
That is absolutely correct. Yes, we're trying to do away with all of this Western centric stuff, and that's exactly right. Before Common Era. Common Era, it hasn't changed. It begins at 2022 years ago. But yeah, and we call what we used to say AD, excuse me, AD, which was something like that, Anno Domini. Yeah, the year after Christ. Domini is the Christ, God. And so, yeah, Latin. But now we do CE, BCE and CE, just right. And so anyway, no history. One of the things that is required for history, as we define it, is a written record. And I talked about that a little bit on Monday, that some cultures had an oral history tradition. And again, if it's not broke, you don't fix it. For the people that did not have written language, they didn't need written language. They had their own community, and everybody had a job. And so there were people that were the spiritual traditional people, the holy people, the shamanistics, the people who know the religion and are the religious authority. And then you got the others that pass on other traditions on how to hunt buffalo, say, or how to build a teepee. All of the knowledge was transferred orally, and it worked. And it worked for thousands of years. So the idea of writing was just, not there. And there had been a long bias against cultures that did not have written language. And in fact, that kind of came about with colonialism. And we were finding cultures all over the world that had no written language. And they were discriminated against. They were seen as not as advanced, uncivilized in some cases. It's written. It's all not true. It's all a big misconception. Like I say, what they did worked, and in some cases actually worked much better than what the colonial peoples had to give. So anyway, here's the ages of human history, and we call it the prehistoric. And then comes the Stone Age, and that got a good picture here. And it's more or less when humans started to use primitive stone tools. Now we know humans used tools before that, again, made of wood and other biodegradable stuff anyway. And so when it lasted 2.5 million years and ended around 5,000 years ago in the Near East when working with metal and making tools and weapons from bronze. And so anyway, just about everything we see in this chapter is going to be, they'll refer to it as Stone Age. And so then let's go back. Bronze Age. And from 3000 BCE to 1300 BCE. And so they were made of bronze, a copper and tin. I'm tripping over my tongue. Copper and tin alloy. And so now I showed you there was Iron Age and then there was Bronze Age. What do you think the Bronze Age came first? Yes, sir.
Because iron wasn't mineable.
It was not mineable, and yeah, that's a good. And yes, what you got to tell me your name again?
Eddie,
Eddie.
because the bronze is easier to shape than iron.
Yeah, you're both right. Yeah, it's more accessible and it's easier to shape because tin and copper, they do mix together. Easier to shape, and most especially, it has a lower melting point. So you don't have to run up a fire so hot. And so it was a lot easier to work with, and it worked for a long time. And we'll be seeing after the Stone Age, actually, we talk about it ending 1300 BCE, but bottom line, stone is still, even to this day, a material used in art making. We'll see all kinds of sculpture made out of sandstone and of marble and so on, all the way through this whole course. But bottom line is that iron replaced bronze because it's stronger. And I remember a long time ago, back when I was your age, I read about the transition between Bronze Age and Iron Age. And at least the author had this theory. He said that when we approached the Bronze Age, it was a time when humankind almost seemed to be constantly at war with one another. And one of the technologies that actually affected success on the battlefield was your weaponry. And we have Bronze Age swords, and that'll cut you and kill you. But an iron sword could actually destroy the other army's bronze swords. It's just that much harder and stronger. And so that, and on top of which, iron is so strong that you could actually incorporate it in architecture as well. And so you can take your Stone Age technology, and we've seen this, put iron fasteners in the stones to help hold the structure together. Bronze, not so much. Bronze is not that strong. So anyway, and it says now used for weapons and tools, the harder metal replace its stone predecessors. And as I say, the Iron Age. And so Where are we at? And so. Yeah, we're still on the right one. And that brings us to the Iron Age, you know, and that is, as they define it here. And so. Couple of other things, Iron Age, roughly 1300 BCE, 900 BCE. And so. Anyway, I wanted to bring up a couple of vocabulary terms here too. And this, hieroglyphs. That is an ancient form of writing. What we have is a glyph basically means a symbol or a character. A little tiny picture is a glyph. And we'll see that term used even in up through Greek art. We'll call the little relief sculptures on some of the buildings glyphs, G-L-Y-P-H. And we'll see earlier than that, we'll call those petroglyphs. Anybody have an idea what a petroglyph is? Yes.
A drawing?
It is. Yeah, usually, yeah, the glyph part is the drawing. The petro part is rock. And so we call the study of rocks, they call it a lot of things, but petrology. And the layer of earth from the age of the dinosaurs that's in the ground, we get the oil from petroleum, it's basically the same root word. Anyway, and so let me go back here, share, and talk about some of this. And so the early discoveries of ancient art kind of center around, not like they're the oldest ones, but they are the earliest ones discovered around in Europe and Southern Europe, Southwestern Europe. And the caves at Altamira, we can see this. This is bison. And it's on the ceiling. And this is at Perche Merle, France. And we got spotted horses. And down here, negative handprints. Ooh, I gotta get off of that. Won't let me zoom. Anyway, bottom line, handprints down here and up here. So that gets to another question. What are they doing? Okay, I'll tell you. At least what we know. We can do in this day and age actually some chemical analysis of the pigment, and basically they made their pigment from the earth around in the area. We can still find some of that stuff, and some of it's plant-based, some of it is decomposing plants, some of it's actually minerals. But pigment is the powdery stuff. We still call it pigment. It's in paint. We put some acrylic clear gel, and then we put white, red, blue, orange pigment in it, and then we have paint. Well, this doesn't really have that so much. It's basically just pure pigment. There's not much of a binder on it. And how they did these, couple of techniques. One is that we think they actually knew how to use brushes. That they made brushes and used them just like you would use a brush today. Second is hand rub those pigments on the cave walls. And the third, which gets me to these handprints, and you find these, like, especially in Europe, but in a lot of ancient caves. They actually did what we would call spray paint. And you can do that like this, and basically what you do is put that pigment in your mouth. It gets wet with your saliva, and you take a reed, a hollow reed, blow it through, and there you go. You got Krylon. You can go tag all your caves if you like, you know. And so anyway, it's kind of ingenious, and the fact that we're talking about 10,000, 20,000 years ago. And let's see. Oh, I know what I could do. And this is at Lascaux. Running horse. Now, I'm telling you about 4 or 5 of these. There's woolly rhinoceros, wounded man, and disemboweled bison.
Which one's the rhino?
Well, see, that's a good question. I think this is the rhino. You can see kind of the head.
Oh, yeah, I can see.
And the wounded man is here.
Yeah.
And then this is disemboweled bison, and there are the bowels.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah, I can see it.
And so, yeah. Well, isn't it kind of interesting? Don't you think? I think this is fascinating that we can look at something an artist tried to communicate almost 20,000 years ago, and we can see what they were trying to tell us. Oh, that's one of the reasons I like art. It communicates really well. It relates to your own knowledge, your own experience. And so this here, they didn't talk about this. We think this is an ibis, swamp, long-legged bird that feeds in swamps. But anyway, there's your running horse. One of the things about horses that we know, anybody know about what the characteristics, the physical characteristics of a horse would have been 20,000 years ago? Yes.
They got big muscles on their thighs.
Yeah, that's true. That is. You gotta tell me your name.
Carter.
Carter, okay. Well, call on you by your name. I'm still learning. Carter, yeah, that's absolutely true. And I know your name too, but okay. All right.
So I might be wrong, but I think the horses were not as fast as now because it looks so bad and chubby.
Yeah, well, I think you and Carter are both right about this. And the other thing that was a characteristic of horses 20,000 years ago, and you're right, they were real muscular, they were slow. Carter.
Looks like from the picture that the fur is a little bit bigger.
Oh, yeah, that's kind of almost all mammals from that era, because we're talking about Ice Age animals. More thick fur than, yeah, absolutely.
Humans had more hair.
Yeah, they would. Yeah, absolutely. There's something else too, and that is that they were typically shorter. You see how short the legs are on this guy? You guys were talking about muscular and kind of chubby and stuff. Short legs. In fact, ancient horses were really pretty small compared to today's horses, and that was like dogs, they became domesticated. They bred them, got taller, could ride them, but there were a species that lend themselves well to that. They responded to breeding, and as you guys were saying, these animals were strong, crazy strong. And their disposition was that they were, we became friendly. And there are other animals, like around the world, talking about India. Take your strong animals like elephants in South Asia, and you can ride them, you can have them help you farm and clear timber, and that they're just strong. And so that's what you go for. No matter what the culture, you want powerful animals. And so anyway, what do you guys have to say? Look at this. I always like this one. It's a little bit older, but look at, this is a whole bunch of animals. Horses, woolly rhinoceri. And this ADAH, I think that's this animal here. I think it's kind of a bovine creature, but not sure. Should have looked that up. Bottom line, tell me what you think about the quality of the drawing. Harder.
To be honest, it looks pretty good. It's like, kind of like an outline, but they added some extra details in it.
Yes, absolutely.
Also, I'm assuming they just have the animals right there next to them, so their memories would have been they would have had really good memories, like to draw them that way.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, they couldn't drag these animals into the cave. That's a good point. And that kind of gets that, I'll go right into this idea. And that is that there are some people, and there are all kinds of theories abound about the purpose of these. And some say it was religious, some say it's educational. And, as I was saying about the oral history, and you can pretty well bet that there was a lot of communication among people 20, 30,000 years ago, that these drawings may have been like the textbook for the young generation of hunters in the community. And so you come in there, and as a matter of fact, there are some of these cave paintings, when they look at them closely, they see these little chips out of them. And there's some that believe that was like the firing range, that you target practice with these, and the young hunters would throw their spears. Oh yeah, you gotta hit it in the chest, whatever. And then there's some that believe that alien people, not space aliens, but people coming into the caves for the first time with their torch may have been frightened that the light came in, they saw this big buffalo, and they're drawn kind of realistically that they got scared and try to throw a spear at it. We don't know. But at any rate, the purpose of these is still debated. But it does give us an idea of what was going on with these guys. And this is in Katahoyok, and roughly 8,000 years ago. One of the things about this painting, this had been there's a lot of excavation and a lot of discoveries in California. And so anyway, you can see level 3. All kinds of stuff from there, but it's a very important site. But look at the action in the figures. They're running, they're falling. They're about ready to check out. And so on. And so, yeah. And so, yeah, they're communicating. Here is one of the oldest that we know about. And this is a water-worn temple. And this is from South Africa. And you can see the face. And it's roughly, we believe, 3 million years old. And I had some slides, I didn't put them in this, but about the diaspora, that for a long time in human history, humans lived in Africa. It wasn't until more recently, 60, 80,000 years ago, did people migrate out of Africa and populate the world. But the bottom line is this would make sense where you find some of the oldest artwork. This is still debatable about, is this just an accident? Is this really a head? But most scholars have come to believe that this was made. There's something else I wanted to show you here too. This jasperite. Anybody ever heard of jasperite? Well, I didn't know what it was for a long time too. That's why I love my smartphone. Jasperite is kind of a mineral that is related to quartz. It's a microsilicon substance. And so what we'll find here with our sculpture is that typically they're softer minerals used for sculpture. Jasperite, that is kind of an outlier. Most of the really old sculptures are like ivory or sandstone or limestone, softer stone. And on that, there is, if you ever want to know this, because when I looked up jasperite, the Mohs scale, MOHS, right? Heard of that? What is it?
Isn't that like the hardness of all?
Yes, it is. Precisely that. And it's a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being the softest, and 10, what would be a 10? Yes, a diamond. That's the hardest mineral substance. And so on the Mohs scale, jasperite is 6.5 to 7. So it is pretty hard. Limestone is only a 3 to 4 on the Mohs scale. So that is yet another aspect of this, is that carving this out was not an easy thing. It's pretty hard. And so check this out. Feline with human feet. We found this. They found it in the Apollo 11 cave. And it's a feline with human feet. This is the first example I have. And we'll see many more of these. Hybrid images. Depictions of creatures that are part human, part animal. There's another thing too. So you can see it's 30,000 years old. Zambia, Southwest Africa. Apollo 11 cave. What? Yes,
It sounds like the moon landing.
it is. They found this cave was discovered at the same time Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin were walking on the moon in 1969. So they named the cave after the moon landing. So it was July 1969. So anyway, just clearing up. Something. But at any rate, look at this. We're going to find that a lot. And this is a human with feline lion's head. So we see it as a human. Look at that head. And we're going to keep seeing this for thousands of years. How many of you familiar with the Egyptian Sphinx? Yeah, human head, lion body.
Yeah, did the Egyptian reports about felines and deity?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, there were a lot of animals sacred in Egyptian culture. Absolutely. And when we get to Egyptian art, they really kind of take this to a whole new level of animal people hybrids. And so anyway, this is found in Central Europe. Woolly mammoth ivory. See, this is, we got DNA now. And if it's ivory, it is derived from some kind of pachyderm, some elephant, mammoth, mastodon, something, maybe even some kind of feline, saber-toothed tigers and so on. But at any rate, you can see it has deteriorated over time. But we know through DNA analysis that it's woolly mammoth ivory. And the idea of a human animal hybrid. So I'm going to make a confession to you guys right here. I'm owning it. We saw this last week. Program called Ancient Aliens. It's either on History Channel or Science Channel or something. And there were ancient alien theorists talking about this kind of depiction. And we find it all over the world. Almost every culture has something like that. As I say, the Egyptians were very big into it, but we can go into the Mediterranean, the Minotaur, the Centaur. We can talk about the Minoans, the Etruscans, the Romans, and we see that in Mesoamerica, a lot of depictions of human animal creatures, like in the Mayan culture. You can take that over to Indonesia. Any place that's got ancient artifacts, we seem to be able to find something like this. And so my confession is that I watched that show, and they basically said that ancient aliens came down and they experimented with our DNA and they created these creatures that were, yeah, like this, like a lion's. I guess they had a sense of humor, you know. I just saying, but at any rate, when you have no evidence, you can kind of fill in the blanks yourself. Now, if that were true, and the sophistication of DNA analysis, the way that they can trace all of us back. I got my DNA analyzed and I got some Neanderthal, which goes back 30,000 years. Yeah. And all over the world. But bottom line, you would think that there would be some genes popping up that if they actually created those things that, you know, but that kind of gets to what is the most plausible, likely, but still not proven that these creatures were like metaphors. They embodied animal characteristics with human beings. And so if somebody, let's say this guy, was ferocious and strong like a lion, we'll put a lion's head on. If, excuse me, still existing to this day, if you have a creature that can come down from the heavens and watch over you like an angel, angel would be a person that had wings. Give you the idea that this angel can fly. Unless you're a Los Angeles Angel and you're a baseball player. But Shohei Ohtani, I know that. Bottom line is that that is really what we believe, that it had the idea that these people could do some abstract thinking along those lines, that they could kind of tell that story of a guy. We talk about this, I mean, through history. English king, Richard the Lionhearted, for example. General Rommel, Nazi general, the Desert Fox, just say, animal, people. And so here is, I put this star here. This was one of the early discoveries, one of the more famous ones. It was found in Central Europe, Venus of Willendorf. And that's why it's in parentheses. We don't know if we want to call it that anymore. It's not entirely correct. Venus, Roman goddess of beauty and love. When these people saw it, they found it, they named it. But the idea of Venus doesn't really come around for another almost 30,000 years, if you will. And it's kind of not accurate. So we just call it New Woman, and it's known as Venus of Willendorf. And limestone, as I was saying, limestone on the Mohs scale is like from a 3 to a 4, so it's actually much easier to carve and manipulate. And so this has given scholars, because it was found over 100 years ago, given scholars something to think about. And pretty much the consensus is, because since that time we found other kinds of sculptures, and this is a head of a woman, we think, and this is from woolly mammoth ivory, and you can see this is a portrait of a woman. We see woman holding bison horn. And this is a reclining woman. This is on the interior of a cave. And this is the drawing, kind of. Like I say, a lot of these cave paintings and sculptures are kind of hard to see. I showed you one from the History Channel where you use some kind of spectrography. This is actually an artist drawing. And so anyway, made of clay. But here's a theme. There's a woman, there's a woman, there's a woman. What would that theme be? So man, that lion's head, we see men painted that sometimes they're out hunting or something. See how tall this is? 4.5 inches high. It's on little bit. Now, what would this be about? What do you think they're trying to tell us from the ancient past? Well, I'll give it a shot. Fertility. And over the years, we talk about Venus as the idea. One of the things that a lot of the other discoveries made of figures of this type, they sometimes are called fertility goddesses. But we don't use that because that has some problems too, because we really don't know for sure that it is. But it's basically the thought, and you see what we have here are exaggerated features. And fertility had to be one of the main concerns of ancient people. Today, infant mortality rates are relatively low. They're higher in some places, lower in others, but even in the last 100 years, even in America, infant mortality rates were really pretty high. And you can read these accounts of farmers out on the prairie, and they would have as many children as possible because children were needed to work the farm to survive. But the other thing is that maybe as many as 5 out of 10 wouldn't make it past age 7. Didn't have modern medicine, didn't have a lot of things that we have today. Didn't have, things that we just kind of don't think about.
So basically, if you get sick for any reason, even just like a sinus cold, you're gone.
Absolutely, yeah, no antibiotics, no vaccines, yeah, things. Measles would just wipe out children like crazy. And now that's why when you go to school, you gotta have your shots because we don't want that to happen again, but you're absolutely right. Any little thing could be a death sentence. And so fertility being the idea, what most people believe, and you can see she got her hands up here over her breast, see the exaggerated genitals, and the idea that she's kind of weighs a lot, kind of heavy. Well, if you had in your community, your ancient community, and you had women that were especially fertile, that physically, biologically were able to produce a lot of children, she would be like the mother, the queen. She would be high up in the community. And that would be her job, just to have kids. And as such, you would make sure that this woman was really taken care of too. She is essential, maybe the most important person in this society. And so anyway, that's what, at least that is one of the prevailing theories about this, and that is a headdress that kind of denotes it. And we still do some of that today too, different ways, but you might be saying that this is an ancient crown depicting status, royalty if there was such an idea back then. And so fertility, and it's very small, and there was this idea that maybe this was portable, that this was something that people carried around in their pocket or with them sometimes. And again, go back to one of the original points today, people were largely nomadic. And so if they had artwork, you couldn't do big sculptures to carry them around. They could go back to the caves where they made their paintings, but anyway, so another, the same, well, this is more, looks more like royal hairstyle, but you can see it's just could come out of today. And woman holding bison horn. You see, it says painted limestone. It doesn't look painted. This is science. Analyzing the surface, seeing that it was at one time painted. And so we associate most of these figures with fertility. And again, reclining woman, bison. These are relief sculptures, are done in clay, remarkably, because clay does not hold up to the elements at all. Moisture, heat, cold, anything, the elements just will destroy this stuff, but it stayed intact. 17,000 years. So we talked about the drawing, how it was pretty good. Looked like something like you could do out of a sketchbook if you guys are in the studio. So, sculpture. Do you agree with me? Highly naturalistic. And another bison licking its flank 14,000 years ago. It's made out of a reindeer antler. Another malleable.
Looks kind of like a cow.
It does. It sure does. Yeah, that's a good call. And here are some stone pillar reliefs. Anyway, one last thing I wanted to show you, and that is that this is a human skull with restored features from Jericho.
Wow.
And so this is a real skull, and they put plaster over it. And they had seashells in here for the eyes. You see over here in the corner? What is that? I'll write some numbers. Back in the old days, they don't do this anymore. But what?
What are they for?
The people who excavated this stuff would write numbers on, take the notes down, catalog it, send it to the museum.
Like a category sort of thing.
Yeah, category sort of thing. But today, we don't ruin the artifacts by writing numbers on it. And so this last part really just has to do mostly with Jericho and Catalhoyuk and the emergence of the cities, which is kind of the turning point. And so I'll put this stuff on. Oh, it's 15 after. I gotta let you guys go because it's time. Have a good weekend. See you on Monday. You too. Thanks. You too. Yes. Oh, that's a thing.
That was enough to give you that too.
You know what this is? This is for an eye pen. Yeah.
Nice meeting you too.
Yeah, it was right.
Some, yeah. All right, thank you.
Oh, I saw that. So, on Wednesday. I was wondering if I can, like, only Wednesday I can attend class. Yes.
Yeah, I can make that.
Because only like Wednesday, I can attend on Mondays,
Mhm.
but like Wednesdays, because my clinic ends at like 3:30. So, and then I'm supposed to be like.
Which mercy are you
Yeah.
at?
Balance.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you.
Mercy's all over the place.
Yeah.
Yeah, but
Is it okay if I attend on
Abs-
Wednesday?
absolutely, and you know why? Because you gave me a good reason. And I'm supposed to require attendance, but
I mean, if it's required, I can.
I'm leaving it up to you, and I'll give you credit for being here, and I'll show you something here too. Look. See there, it says participants. I'm expecting that to be a 2. Cause I'm the only participant now, so I'll know that you're here. and It's all good.
Oh, sounds good. All right, then I don't have to come back here and then go back home again.
Yeah, I know. Well, see, that's it.
Yeah.
You
I mean,
guys,
I will be here Mondays, but only Wednesdays.
that works.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Have a great weekend.